Republican Congressman Bill Flores gave the commencement address at Texas A&M University in College Station in early May. The former oil executive came back to his alma mater to talk to the class of 2013. His speech is about 30 minutes.
Well, howdy. Dr. Lofton, thank you for that nice introduction, and thank you for inviting me to join you at this commencement. My wife Gina and I are thrilled to be here. I would also like to exercise one of the privileges that comes with being your speaker this evening, and that's to give a shout out to my relatives in the audience this evening. Joining Gina and me this evening are my mother, Terry Wagner, her husband, John Wagner, and my sister-in-law, Lee Jackson. I have a few more shout outs to offer in a few minutes. By the way, this convocation is being recorded by C-SPAN. So if you all think today is a great day to be a Texas Aggie, please let our C-SPAN audience know with a strong Aggie whoop. Whoop! Yes, it is a great day to be a Texas Aggie. Now, here are a few of the reasons. We're the home to more than 50,000 students, ranking as the 6th largest university in the country. We have more than 360,000 former students worldwide, or as Bowen said a few minutes ago, 500,000 in the extended Aggie family. We hold a coveted membership in the prestigious Association of American Universities, one of only 61 universities with this distinction. We conduct life-changing research valued at more than $705 million annually, currently ranking among the top 20 universities nationally, and third behind only MIT and the University of California at Berkeley for universities without medical schools. We have an endowment valued at more than $5 billion, which ranks 4th among U.S. public universities and 10th overall. In sports, we claimed 4 national team championships and 9 conference titles last season, both of which were school best. We're the home to Johnny Football Manziel, the 2012 Heisman Trophy winner. We are recognized as the original and current home of the 12th man, where students stand during football games to show support for the team and for fellow Aggies, a personification of the Aggie spirit. We were recently rated by Sports Illustrated as the nation's best game day, and I quote them as follows: "Few venues are more hostile to opponents than the Maroon Bowl of Kyle Field, where the eardrums of visiting players are under constant assault from the Aggies' 12th man, the nation's best drilled student body." Our Corps of Cadets is recognized among the nation's largest uniformed student bodies at more than 2,300 strong. We consistently commission more officers annually from the Corps of Cadets than any other school in the country outside of the military academies. In keeping with our land-grant roots, we're one of the universities with the fastest growing population of underrepresented groups. In keeping with our military roots, we were ranked as one of the most veteran-friendly colleges in the country. We have more than 800 student-led clubs and organizations where leaders are molded and selfless service is inculcated into our individual and our group values. And here's an interesting tidbit. We're recognized as having among the most Facebook fans of any university in the country. So, in terms of public service, Texas A&M is privileged to have many of its own in elected office, including an Aggie governor. We have many members of the Texas House and the Texas Senate, and 4 members of the United States Congress. We also have hundreds more serving in all levels of local, state, and federal government. But most importantly, over the next 2 days, as you heard Dr. Lofton say, we will graduate almost 7,200 graduates, the most of any graduating class ever. You are the folks that will go change the world, and I am proud to call each of you a fellow Aggie sister or brother. Yes, today is truly a great day to be a Texas Aggie. Now let's start with a little Q&A before I get too much further tonight. I want you to answer by either raising your hand or a whoop if the answer is yes to any of the following. How many of you are the first generation in your families to receive a college education? How many of you are the first Aggie in your family? That's awesome. How many of you have jobs when you walk across the stage this weekend? That's impressive in this world. How many of you are confident in your future? Whoop. How many of you are worried about your future? Don't whoop for that one. Just hold your hands up. I didn't see any hands go up. That's great. How many of you are graduating in less than 4 years? Well, I'm glad it wasn't crickets. That's good. How many of you are graduating in more than 4 years? Uh-oh. How many of you are graduating in more than 5 years? I think we'll stop there. Now, for the parents and family members in the audience, how many of you are happy about seeing your son or daughter or spouse graduate this evening? From 2007, when I served as chairman of the board of our Association of Former Students, through my campaign and through my current service in Congress, I've given over 200 speeches to well over 150,000 people. Now, why do I bring this up? I'm saying this because even though I should be an experienced public speaker, I consider this speech tonight to be one of the most difficult speeches I've ever had to write and deliver. Why do I feel this way? Well, there are a number of reasons. First, there are 4 persons who changed my life when I was at A&M. The late Phil Youngdahl, professor of accounting. The late J. Wayne Stark, who was the founder and director of the MSC. Dr. John J. Coldis, former vice president of student affairs. And Dr. Wendy Graham, professor of economics. When I think of these folks, I'm reminded of the words on the statue of Lawrence Sullivan Ross: soldier, statesman, knightly gentleman. Each of these individuals tried to encourage me and to mold me to model those words, and they had a profound impact on me. So I wonder, what would they say if they were speaking to you tonight instead of me? Second, our son Will, class of 2012, is in the audience today, and he graduates on Saturday. What should I say that will help him remember this graduation beyond having the degree placed in his hand on Saturday? Third, 37 years plus 1 day ago, on May 8th, 1976, I graduated from this institution. It happened across the street in G. Raleigh White Coliseum. And the speaker for that commencement was General Fred C. Winand, who was then the Chief of Staff of the United States Army. What would he want me to repeat from the commencement address that he delivered that day? And lastly, but most importantly, what should I say that will be that little kernel, that little seed that may stick with you and that might germinate to help you become the best that you can be, and that will make you the Aggie that other Aggies aspire to follow in the future? So where do we start? Why am I here? And what do I want to share with you? Well, here we go. Here's what I hope we can share this evening. First, I want to congratulate you for your accomplishments and for the degrees that you're about to receive. Second, I want to tell you a little bit about the world in which you're about to enter. And third, I want to share some reflections with you that I hope will be meaningful for your future. The future that will start at the point your degree is placed in your hand this weekend by President Lofton. So, let's get started. Congratulations to each of you upon your completing your education. You have accomplished a significant milestone. Education is an essential building block to becoming a productive part of our American society. And your Aggie education is one of the events where real life change happens for you, for your families, and for your communities, and for our country. Today, you join a group representing about 36% of our population that will obtain a post-high school degree. For most of you, the A&M education that you have received will be all that you need in terms of the formal education that you will need for your career. The rest of your education will come from on-the-job training, from non-academic sources, or from life itself. Your efforts at A&M, along with the investment of the taxpayers of this state, the giving of the A&M philanthropic community, the support of your families, and the commitments of the A&M faculty, staff, and administrators have prepared you well for this point in time. Will you join me in a big round of applause for our graduates? Now, while I want to congratulate all of you, I have some special recognitions at this time. First, among this graduating class are 6 Aggies who have either worked for me or interned for my official office for my campaign. Their names are Nicole Heath, Madison Fox, Haley Barnett, Richard Como, Kyle Brookmiller, and John Landis. Thanks to each of you for your help to me, and congratulations. Second, each of you has had your own particular challenges as you've gone through your education that you had to deal with to get to this point. On Monday of this week, I received a letter from one of our spring graduates. And in that letter, she shared her challenges and her accomplishments, and I want to share that letter with you tonight. Dear Congressman, I'm a 38-year-old African-American woman who grew up in the Deep South. Soon I will be a first-generation college graduate. My mother spent her entire childhood on government assistance, and she did not even finish high school. She did, however, receive a GED. Fortunately, past is not always prologue, and demography is not destiny. Through hard work as a single parent, she kept her 2 children clothed, fed, and secure, such that we might have the opportunity to use our own sweat and tears to shape our futures. Now, having left full-time employment 2.5 years ago to finish my bachelor's degree, I have maintained a 4.0 GPR. Moreover, I will be starting a PhD program this fall, having received a National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship. I am the American dream. God bless. Cherish Vance. This story is a perfect example of the life change that comes from higher education. Cherish, thank you for your letter, and congratulations to you. Third, and possibly most importantly to Gina and to me, our son Will graduate this weekend. After his last final earlier this week, thereby completing his A&M coursework, he made a post on social media that included a hashtag that described his higher ed experience in graphic detail. The hashtag was, "That took way too long." And I think it perfectly describes the situation. But that said, he is graduating with a GPA that was higher than mine, and whether it took 4 years, or a few more than 4 years, he still has that Aggie degree, and his mom and I are very proud of him. So, Will, your mom and I want to say congratulations. We are proud of you, and we love you. Now, while it's important to congratulate all of you, I think it's also important that you recognize those of you who helped get you to this point. In order to do that, I ask that all the graduates stand. Come on. There you go. That's good. Now, graduates, please give your family members a big round of applause for all the support that they made to help you get to this point in your life. Now, please give the faculty and staff a round of applause for the commitments they have made toward your education. Graduates, please remain standing. For those of you in the audience that are active military, veterans, or first responders, including law enforcement, firemen, or EMS, please stand also. Okay? I also recognize those of you that will be commissioned this weekend into our armed forces that are already standing. Without the selfless service of the group that just stood, we would not be able to enjoy the freedoms and security that we have in this great country. So I now ask everyone to stand and thank this group. Thank you for your service to America. Everybody, please be seated. You're entering a troubled time in the history of the world and in the history of our nation. We're besieged by threats to our national security and to our economic security. Some countries in the European Union are perilously close to economic meltdown, and nobody knows what will happen if they fail. Even our own country has seen its national debt soared to over the past 5 years to just under $17 trillion. The point where it exceeds our national output or our GDP. In addition, our federal government has made another $100+ trillion of financial promises in the form of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and other federal programs. These are the financial promises that cannot be kept unless their funding is taken from your generation or unless these programs are repaired soon. You're entering an economic environment where about 1 of every 7 Americans is either unemployed or underemployed or is just totally given up work, looking for work altogether. You're entering an economy where you're competing not only against your peers in this room and across the nation, but your peers all over the world. The competition for jobs in this new economy has never been tougher. That's the bad news. The good news is that you guys are well prepared to take on these challenges. For 137 years, Texas A&M University has been educating, mentoring, and molding the best and the brightest here in Texas and from around the world. And the combination of this education and the experiences that you've had here at A&M, both in the classroom and out of the classroom, has uniquely prepared you for the world you're about to enter. A couple of publications support my positions on this. First, Texas A&M was ranked 2nd in the nation by the Wall Street Journal among all universities, public and private, in a survey of top U.S. corporations, nonprofits, and government agencies based on graduates that recruiters prefer to hire. That's where the rubber meets the road for undergraduate degrees. Also, Texas A&M is ranked in the top 25 nationally by Washington Monthly in what colleges do for this country. In a nutshell, you graduates will become part of an ever more competitive workforce that will restore our country's economy. From our founding in 1876 as Texas' first public institution of higher education, A&M has awarded over 350,000 degrees and has provided a higher education experience to thousands more. Because of Texas A&M and your educational efforts, you have equipped yourselves to hit the ground running. You have earned your education credentials that our economy needs today, and you will begin making a difference immediately. Now, your new future starts this weekend at the point that President Lofton places your degree in one hand and shakes your other hand. What happens after that? Well, that's up to you. However, I have some thoughts for you to reflect upon. Back on April 25th, I attended a memorial service for the first responders that were killed in the line of duty because of the explosion in West. And during that service, the brother of one of the 12 men killed in that explosion talked about his brother's life in terms of the dash between his brother's date of birth and his brother's date of death. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about the dash in your lives. When at some point in the future, someone looks at your tombstone, they will obviously see your date of birth and your date of death. More importantly, however, what will they see in between in your dash? I want all of your dashes to be bold and rich and meaningful. And by the way, when I use the term rich, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about rich with texture. Here's some thoughts about building your dashes. First, make a plan for your future. Second, live or execute that plan. Third, strive to become a leader. And fourth, serve others. Now let's dig into the details of these dash building blocks, if you will. And along the way, I will try to build in our Aggie core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service. Let's talk about planning first. All of us know that without a plan, we don't know where we're going. So take an inventory of your skills, your weaknesses, your strengths, and your knowledge. Take these attributes, decide where you're going to go in life, and build a plan overlay to take you there. Start now. Do it tonight, so that right after President Lofton places that diploma in your hand, you can start. Your plan should be a holistic outlook on what you want to do in your career, in your personal life, in your family life, and in service to others. Always keep in mind, however, that your plan is a dynamic set of aspirations. You should constantly assess how you're doing in achieving it, what's happening in the environment around you, and adjust your plan to fit the changes in your opportunities and your goals. By the way, for what it's worth, when I graduated, I did have a plan. It was written on a legal yellow pad, and it had 1, 5, and 10-year goals. And I carried it with me everywhere I went. Now, I carry the latest one electronically on my BlackBerry. So my wife makes fun of me about that. Now, some of you may want to ask, how did I do versus my plan? Well, that's a topic for another day. But I want to tell you this to prove my point about the need for constant reassessment of your plan. Until the summer of 2009, none of my plans ever contemplated me running for Congress, and here I am today. So other than that, I think I've done pretty well versus my plans. So now that you've written your plan and you've committed to follow it and you've committed to revisit it from time to time, what's next? Well, as the Nike commercials used to say, just do it. Go live your plan. Go execute it. When you live your plan, do it with the Aggie core values that you learned here: excellence, integrity, loyalty, and respect. Also remember some things when you're living your plan. First, do it with self-confidence or gravitas. After all, remember, you built your plan in such a way to capitalize on your strengths and minimize your weaknesses, so you should be confident in it. Second, live every day. Live it every day. Look in the mirror each day and say, what am I going to do to live my plan today? Third, realize that you're going to have setbacks along the way. Some of these will be because of your mistakes, and some will be because of the actions of others. With respect to your mistakes, learn from them, but don't dwell on them. When others make mistakes that cause a setback for you, remember that you cannot control their actions. However, you can control your reactions in response to their mistakes. Fourth, remember that in many cases, your ability to execute your plan will involve working with others. While working as a group or a team, remember a couple of important elements. The stronger the team, the better the outcome. Just like our Aggie core brass inscription says, per unitatem vis, through unity, strength. Strong teams are based upon that Aggie core value of respect. The golden rule in respect is treat others the way you'd want to be treated. Fifth, avoid distractions, but also avoid fixation. Since I'm a pilot, the easiest way for me to explain this is to use flying analogies. Sometimes when people are flying, some minor thing will go wrong, like somebody's son knocks a Coke can over. I'm not pointing fingers or anything. But this distraction can keep the pilot from paying attention to what he should, and they have an accident. This wouldn't happen if they'd forget about the distraction until they are sure that they have the plane flying in a stable manner, and then they can deal with the distraction, if at all. On the other hand, there are numerous examples where pilots have become overly fixated on one or two of their primary flight instruments. And there are 6 primary flight instruments. And they've crashed because they failed to see the warning signals from the other instruments that they were ignoring. Keep your field of view wide open at all times. You'll find opportunity there. Last but not least, remember that we don't control the number of days that we have to live, but we do control how we live them. So as you live each day, live it as if it's your last, and as if it's the day by which you're going to be judged, by which your dash will be described. Okay, so now you've been living your plan, and you're now doing well enough that somebody notices you and asks you to lead. It could involve being a mentor to new teachers, leading your church choir, or becoming a new department head at your company. Now what? Again, we turn to our Aggie core values of excellence, leadership, loyalty, and respect. You should bake these values into your leadership style. Also, with regard to leading, I have a few things for you to think about. First, always be willing to do what you would ask others to do. If you won't do it yourself, they won't follow you. Secondly, lead with integrity. If you don't have integrity, others won't follow you. Third, be loyal to your team and give credit to others when you or your team does well because of them. And fourth, and this is probably the most important, watch out for pride. You have probably been asked to lead at this point because you've been successful, but don't let it go to your head. Excessive pride leads to arrogance, and arrogance leads to narcissism. And remember, the only person that likes an arrogant or narcissistic person is themselves. If this happens to you, you'll be just like many of the folks I work with in Congress. And then, and then you too can wind up with a 12% approval rating, just like Congress has today. So always, always, always remember that you put your pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else in this world. You're not any more important than any other person. Now, before we talk about service, let's take an assessment of where we are now. You've created your plan. You've updated it from time to time. You're living your plan every day. And based on the way that you've done these things, you've been asked to lead, and you're doing that well. In other words, you're a success. Now what? Before we answer that, let's make sure we have a clear understanding of what the word success means, in my view. For purposes of our conversation today, success should not exclusively be measured in monetary terms. It can also be measured by children raised, students taught, people comforted, lives saved, broken hearts healed, discoveries made, inventions created, a nation defended, local threats mitigated by first responders, and dozens of other actions. Now let's talk about serving. In my mind, serving can take a couple of forms. It can include paying back others who helped you get to where you are, or it can involve paying it forward to help others get to where you are now in the future. For this part of our conversation today, it's important to remember our Aggie core value of selfless service. It is this Aggie value that has many times the impact of the others. Excuse me. It is this Aggie value that has many times the impact of the others, the other things of living and planning and leading than those others. And when it comes to service, you can serve in a number of ways: by volunteering, by mentoring, and by sharing your resources. It is also important to remember that while serving is important, our attitude while we're serving is even more important. If you're serving, but you're grumpy, the people that you're helping are going to know that, and they're not going to know that you're not doing it with an open heart. If you're smiling genuinely, they will understand that. They will know that you're genuinely serving from your heart. I want to conclude the serving part of this conversation with an observation. Even though I've made my share of mistakes, I still consider my life a success in many ways. However, one of the areas in which I consider my success to be the most fulfilling is the way that Gina and I have helped others. Some of my more meaningful days have been when I've seen lives changed by service to others. So by planning, living, leading, and serving, you can build that dash that is bold and rich and meaningful. It will be the dash that you will be happy to leave as a legacy for others to see. And before I wrap up our conversation tonight, I'd like to share a few other thoughts. The first, that God has given us a decision tree to use when we make our daily decisions. It's called the 10 Commandments. If you use this decision tree when you make your decision, you'll always make the right ones. My next thought is that God put each of you on this earth for a purpose. Please find that purpose, build it in your plan, and live it. Finally, before I close, please remember to pray for our country during these difficult times. Please pray for our military men and women who protect our country from threats abroad, and for our first responders who protect us from threats here at home. These men and women sacrifice and selflessly serve 24/7 so that you and I can enjoy evenings like this. On this latter note, since I was sworn into office in January of 2011, we've lost 24 brave Americans, 8 in the military and 16 first responders, including the 12 first responders who were killed last month in West. These men each exemplified the words of Jesus in John 15:13. Greater love hath no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. These 24 men each have bold, rich, and meaningful dashes as part of their legacies. Their selfless service is an example to us all. When I look at this crowd, everybody really, but the young graduates in particular, I see a bunch of potential for bold, rich, meaningful dashes. Will you build those dashes? Will you go build those bold, rich, meaningful Aggie dashes? Will you? If so, will you signify with a strong Aggie whoop? Giggle. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless Texas Aggies everywhere.
U.S. Democratic Senator Mark